Of season 1. I'm Crystal.
And I'm Katie.
And today we are going to dive deep into pleasure and the importance of it and why we need to talk about it and just everything. Everything in pleasure land.
Sounds good. I love this topic.
Okay, so some of you already know that I coined myself the pleasure fairy because I was always something fairy. You know, I was the placenta fairy. I was the postpartum fairy. And so it was just a natural thing for me as I started getting into this work to be the pleasure fairy because might as well stick with the P and the fairy.
Yes, and you have fairy vibes for sure.
Yeah, actually that came up in a Thai bodywork session I was having yesterday. That was kind of fun.
Nice.
It was very pleasurable.
Bet.
So the reason I went there first, as I kind of started diving into this work, is because to me, it's the foundation of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the easiest place to start.
Yeah.
It's something that is free and accessible for anyone. And it's just a matter of sprinkling it into your life and building upon that. And I think that so many people, when they're turned off from life and they've been blocked for so long or they haven't been tuning into their body and they're so disconnected, it almost seems impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's just the simplest thing that you start with.
Yeah.
Is to just feel for a minute or delight in something visual or any of those types of things. So there's all of that in its simplicity and how that's why it's such a foundational piece to everything.
Yeah. I mean, I love hearing you talk about it because I think we started working together about a year ago in your class that I was in. Yeah. And it was totally foreign for me. And now after working with it for a year, it takes some time to get it, right? It's like any practice. And now I really get it and I can really use it. And I don't feel a resistance to it as being, when sometimes there's something new or maybe it's just my personality, but it was I didn't know how to do it. And so it kind of felt like a resistance to it in a way because I didn't know how.
Yeah, well,
which is kind of sad, but it's so common, I'm sure. So
who's all blocked from just being able to receive?
Yeah.
And so the capacity to receive is tied in with our capacity to receive and feel and experience pleasure. And so in our society, everything's set up where it's just go, 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 and do, and goal-oriented and all those things, that this whole facet has gotten, displaced, missed, overlooked, yada, 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 all of those kinds of words. And what you're saying to me just in that moment is your level of embodiment has changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like anything in life. It's so interesting because I remember when I first kind of started diving deeper into true self-care, really figuring out what is going on with me and my life. And I remember thinking, which ties into it, is me and my best friend, Mandy, we would talk about how when we were kids growing up together, just that carefree feeling or what it's like to be a kid, just that happy, carefree, da, da, da. And I was I don't even remember what that feels like in my body. And it was sad to me. And that was kind of the start of my journey, is to try to find that childlike innocence. And I'm smiling now because now what I've learned from you and you're that's part of it, is the innocence, and talk about that because this is just kind of connecting to me right now as I'm talking.
Yes. When we go even further with the innocence, it's usually coined erotic innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because when we are young, we're not imposed upon. Yes, our parents are saying things and doing things and it's starting, but we're not living in that box yet.
Yeah.
You know, we have that free, we don't know all the stuff.
Yeah.
So when you're in that innocent place, sometimes I think about it, and this is kind of strange, as being an alien, you know, where you're looking at something and it's, what is this? Where did this come from? What is this made of? Wow, it feels like this. But you think of it as a baby, and as they're starting to learn to touch, and, you know, their smell's already been well developed, and so they're already smelling these things and sensing these things. They're very much in their senses as they keep developing that. And so it's so new, and that concept, it first of all, it awakens our eros. And our eros is that aliveness, that erotic energy, and it likes things that are new and novel. And sometimes that comes just from that perception shift of being like, what is this? How does this feel? And being really present with it, because that's what it's like. When you're sitting there playing, you're just in it. Or you're walking by and you see flowers. Literally, my oldest would stop me on our walks and make me literally stop and smell the flowers. Because it was like, whoa, this is so pretty. And it's the colors, and can I touch it, and all of that. It's so fresh and new, and that innocence brings a whole new vitality and awakening to any experience. And you can bring that to any experience. We can do it right here. You know, making this new and exciting again. I mean, it's still really exciting, so who am I kidding? But but look at this crazy microphone, and how does this computer work? And mine has this crazy screensaver on it right now. I could be going into the lands of the colors, and what is that like? And we're just, if we're not choosing to do that, we're in autopilot. We're going in automatic, and we're not keyed into our senses. And that leads right into the fact that our senses are the way to the pleasure, because it's just, that's how we do it. That's how we feel. That's how it all works. Just want to do something real quick here.
Yeah, that's really neat. It just reminds me of, that's probably why it feels so fun to go on vacation, because everything's new. Like last night, me and my husband just went downtown where we live, but we hadn't been out forever, just the two of us, and so much had changed. There were so many new restaurants and buildings, and we were like, wow, this feels like a vacation somewhere new. And it was so fun, and we just had such a good time just like being out and like looking around and seeing things. And so it just kind of makes me think of that. You kind of get in your rut at home. I think of myself when I just kind of get that stir crazy feeling. As soon as you can kind of like get out, you feel better. So,
well, and that's the
it.
Like that's the it, because our neuroplasticity is increased when we go on vacation because of that, because of how new everything is and all of that. So you think about it. You think of when you drive the same way to work every day, and if you mix that up, your brain has to go, whoa, wait a minute. I'm going a different way. I have to pay attention. And so your neuroplasticity it's more plastic. It's more moldable. It's more changeable when you're on vacation. So vacation is actually a great time to start new habits when you're wanting to do that. And then this other piece that you're talking about is huge for relationship. So whenever you can do something that brings that novelty, you're activating your eros. And that eros is that aliveness, and that means you're increasing your connection, and you're making the relationship more stable and juicy and all of those things. So
yeah,
I love that. Ties right in. Okay.
Yeah.
So what else about pleasure? Why is it important? Because everybody seems to want to just, I don't know. Here's the common thing. First of all, I'm going to interject myself and just say, I got my free book out there right now, which is Tune Into Your Sensuality, Feel Your Libido Again. And I'm mentioning it because the number one thing that women are saying to me is, I don't have time. I don't have time for my sensuality. I don't have time to even like think about feeling or where my libido's at or doing anything to try to get it back or any of those types of things. And that's just the thing, is it's so important. It's so important that we have pleasure in our lives. And here's why. One, I've already said a lot. It's very tied into our aliveness, and our aliveness is our vitality. So if we want to be living vibrant, amazing lives, we have to be keyed in to our body, our senses, our pleasure. Just, it's a non-negotiable. To feel well, to feel alive, to move that current of energy, no matter what you're dealing with physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like, we just need it. It makes everything better. It helps our nervous system. And so many people, like everybody, is in their sympathetic nervous system way too much. And it's not designed that way. We are supposed to oscillate between things. Just like when we talk about yin and yang of other things, we're supposed to go between our parasympathetic and our sympathetic, and we really would benefit if we can be in our parasympathetic way more. That's the rest, it's the digest, it's the heal, it's the have sex, it's that calm, centered, knowing everything is okay in the world and in your life feeling. And I think about it in my own experience of life and how often I'm just going about my day and I feel that deep safety. I'm just like, everything's just great.
Yeah.
You know, it's just really great. And that does not mean that my life doesn't have challenges. And it doesn't mean that I don't have stressors. It doesn't mean that I'm not doing 1 million things. It means that I'm in flow, and to my core, I feel safe. I feel calm. I feel connected to my body, connected to myself, centered, you know? And when we can just touch that for however many moments we can every single day, it gets easier, it gets stronger, we're more connected to ourselves. And that's what pleasure can do, because pleasure puts us there. And when I'm saying pleasure, it doesn't have to just be, oh, I'm trying to go have an orgasm. I think so many people, you know, I don't know where it was at in our year together for that VIP group, but there was a point where I had everybody define what is pleasure. And so anybody listening right now, take a minute to do that. You can pause this or do it afterwards, but write down, what is your definition of pleasure? Because it's common that it's interlaced with and or only, for some people, connected with sex. And if that component of your life is not exactly where you want it to be, you might be denying yourself pleasure in all of these little moments all day long.
Yeah, I think that's such a good thing to point out, because for some reason I do feel like even saying that word, because I've used it a lot now when I work with people, and immediately you can tell it kind of, there's something, the word has just become so misconstrued that it's almost like taboo to say it. It feels like, and I can feel it in myself. So, you know, I tell people, all I know is my experience. I, you know, not trying to project it on people ever, but it's always coming through my own filter. And I kind of feel that way when you say the word pleasure. It's one of those words that people are like, ooh, like, what's that off limit thing? Which is part of the whole everything you teach.
It is
unraveling that.
Because there's so much shame and guilt and hiddenness, which is mostly shame, around sexuality. So when we go into just being sensual, being expressive, and being tuned into our pleasure, all of that feels like it's linked to all of that woundology. So there might be some of those things. So that's why it is great to really start with, like, how do you define it? How do you define it? And do you want to create a new definition?
I was just going to say, yeah.
Because go for it. Right now, you can decide that pleasure is going to mean something different for you. It could mean that you're living in your body. It could mean that you're listening to your senses. You want to do that exploration for yourself, though. I don't like being like, here's all these definitions you can take on. But go ahead and explore that for yourself. What is your new definition of pleasure? Because it's so powerful and important.
Do you feel like it's important for it to be something embodied versus like someone saying like, well, for me, pleasure is when I go buy myself a new pair of shoes? Do you feel like that is, I don't want to say it incorrect, but like a outside of the body thing where you want people to try to make it an embodied thing? What would you say to that?
I mean, for sure. Anytime we can embody something, it just increases its value. You know, having anything outside of yourself is only going to get you so far. So being able to embody it, it just becomes you. And it goes so deep. I don't remember what it was right this second, but I had a new embodiment of something recently. It'll maybe come back to me. And I felt it. I felt it go through my body deeper to my bones. And it was the coolest thing, because that's what it is. It becomes you. And so each thing goes deeper, and it just unravels in that way. And so I do love bringing into the conversation just the senses. So to me, pleasure is directly linked with our senses. So yes, doing something that's more external, like buying something for yourself that you like, where does that activate your senses? Because then that becomes more connected to the body. So if you're buying a cute bag, is it the way it feels on your skin? Is it the way you feel inside when it's on you, on your body? Is it, how does it feel itself, texture-wise? Does it light you up because of its beauty? When you look at it, it makes you feel like, because it's so beautiful, you know? So you can bring in each of your senses, maybe not taste for that one. How does your bag taste? But definitely the touch and sight, beauty's huge for all of this stuff when we can connect with beauty. So, you know, that's where you can bring something like that to the body. I recently made a post on Instagram about having my Medusa, my car, back and driving it. And it brings me so much pleasure. It's crazy. Like, I love driving. And driving that car, it's the concept of it's like a glove. You know, I'm sitting in it and I feel aligned and I feel connected and I feel one with the car. And I get to zoom and feel the vibrations and go, you know, increase my speed quickly and do different things. And it's just so sensational that I feel it through my whole body. And it does. It brings me so much pleasure. It enlivens my whole body. It just turns it on.
Nice.
And it's still an external thing. But it comes into everythingness, you know?
Yeah.
So everybody doesn't need to go buy yourself a car. It's just...
I remember this makes me remember when we were doing one of the practices and talking about it, and I was like, oh, I just have on like a new pair of like sweatpants and sweatshirt and some like warm socks, and it felt so good. And I still remember how that felt in that moment. So kind of, yeah, another way to just like feel, and when something feels good, to like really feel it, like spend some time in that moment. Like you said, a simple, and it doesn't cost anything. It really doesn't take more than a few seconds, but just to like acknowledge like, this feels really good. And like maybe saying it out loud, or like, I feel so happy and content and grateful for just this everything in my life that's just come together at this moment. I think that's helpful for me to acknowledge those because it makes it like
Yes.
bigger. It adds more
It
momentum to
amplifies
it.
it.
Yeah, and amplifies it,
Yeah,
which is cool.
absolutely. Absolutely. And then I do also, that's just making me think about sharing it and how exciting it can be to share stuff. And I want to say, feel it fully for yourself and really be with it before you share it. Because sometimes we get so excited about something and then we're just like, it's almost like we get it and go and give it away, you know?
Yeah.
So hold your moments for yourself. And then when you feel really ready, almost where you're embodied with the experience yourself, because it's within you now, then you can share it with another person. And or if you are doing something with a partner or even a child, a hug, then you're having that shared experience, even though you're each having your own experience also. And just soak it up, really be with it, just like you were kind of saying in that.
Yeah. That's cool. I think that's good advice because in like the world we live in, like everything is like share, share, share. Like when something cool happens, you're like, oh, I should post this or this or that.
Right.
And like I've kind of noticed like my thoughts of doing that, but I kind of usually don't because I'm not super active and actually like most people in the world trying to just like do a little less on there so I can be truly present in the moment because that is bringing me more pleasure. But
Yeah.
I think that can kind of tie into it because it just feels like you just want to share it with everyone now. And
Yeah.
I'll think back like, gosh, 10 years ago, if my kids were just doing something really cute, I would just sit and enjoy it. But now it's almost, you feel that need to like let everyone else know and share. It's just this
Right.
weird world we live in right now
Yeah.
with technology.
Totally, totally. And with that, I'm going to tie that right back into the other benefits because so often when we're on social media and doing that type of stuff, we slip into land of comparison and that triggers our nervous system and our safety levels. So again, when you can, if you were spending time and started doing that, going down that rabbit hole, to come back into your body through some pleasure, and then you can decrease, because the other thing with the nervous system that's tied in is you're going to decrease the amounts of cortisol in your body the more that you can have pleasurable moments. And that is that it's not adrenaline, it's cortisol, but it's that very like rah, fight, flight, scared rush that can happen. And I just see elevated levels of that with people in general when they're in that land of comparison and what do I have to do, or they're in their freeze state. So then that's more into there. But I feel like you're still having cortisol rushes and craziness. And then if you do take it, if you want to take the pleasure to the extent of being in the sheets, then orgasming is going to decrease your amounts of cortisol as well. So this can go in that direction. There's no stopping the infinite of where your pleasure can go. And that's one of the things that when you start doing that work, it's whoa, because here you are really experiencing it. So right now I'm just having a moment because I remember talking to somebody about how eating food can be practically orgasmic, or it can be. I don't even know why I say practically in there. It just can be. Having a special drink, even water, where you're taking this in and it's so pleasurable that it does feel orgasmic. And this person I was talking to was saying, I've heard people say that, and that is just so not in my reality. I can't even imagine what that's like. And that's the potential. That's where it can go. I actually had somebody call me a walking clitoris one time because I was soaking up a sunset It was so beautiful, and it was radiating through my whole body. I could just feel it, and it was just, and they were just observing me. And they go, you're like a walking clitoris. I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
Well,
Sure.
And I feel like in some of the teachings that you've shared with me, it's like, sometimes when you start to like step into this, it can be intimidating for other people, for you to be so vital and in yourself and enjoying life, because I mean, sadly, most people aren't. And like misery loves company. So when you
Right.
start doing this work, sometimes it can just create some different shifts and things in relationships too, I think,
Absolutely.
if people aren't like up for it or whatever.
Yeah, I in my notes, I
Mm-hmm.
have how relationships can change when you have more pleasure, and it is both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Some of your relationships might get so good, so juicy, even friendships, because
Mm-hmm.
you're embodying yourself wholly, and in doing that, you're giving this other person permission
Yes.
to do that. And then you both get to enjoy life and be vital. And like Katie's saying right now, the opposite of that can happen. It can feel very triggering because people are seeing parts of themselves that they have not claimed. They don't know how to touch within themselves. And it gets scary. That type of change can feel scary, and do it anyway.
Yeah. I think what's interesting too is how, like, working on some of these practices, even if the majority of the work for me, like when I was first starting out, and it still is, just like things for myself, like slowing down when I like put on lotion after a shower, or just like slowing down in the shower, slowing down folding laundry. But it has like tied over to allow me to be more present in the moment, in the bedroom stuff, like so I can
Yeah.
enjoy it more. It's hard to put into words. I wish everyone just take Crystal's classes, please, because it's hard to put it into words. And some of it's kind of like personal things to share on a podcast, but just it's amazing how many little things have shifted since I've started doing this work. And right away, I mean, I enjoyed it, but to be honest, I was just kind of like everyone else. Like, I don't know how this works. I don't get it. Okay, Crystal, you look like you're loving this pleasure, but I'm just like not feeling it. But it's because I was so out of it.
Right.
And to see so much have changed for me just within a year, it's really cool. It just is like I don't know, like a validation of the work you're doing, I guess I would say. So
Which I appreciate deeply. And
it's really cool.
I think that's great for people to know, because everyone's journey is different.
Yeah.
And so there are people who will have a weekend workshop or do something, and everything's changed just from those 3 days, where other people, they're implementing those things for weeks and months, and so much happens in a year.
Yeah.
So that's actually something, side note, I've been tinkering with. Would somebody want that type of almost personal support for a whole year? And is that something that I would want to offer the world? Because I've kind of condensed things, for the year it's usually just for my VIPs, and it's very group oriented. So that is something that's been on my mind, and obviously if any of you want that, you can message me and let me know.
Like a little coaching almost.
Right, where we'd meet every week virtually and go through what's come up, where are you at, like what do we need to work on.
Pleasure life coaching.
Yes, exactly.
Totally. I just think, it's amazing how many things can kind of unlock during that process too. Like just,
For sure.
yeah, just like the unlocking of things that you weren't aware of when you start opening up into pleasure. Because to me, like pleasure is being like soft and open. And the other side of that is being hard, tight, frozen, locked down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting to,
I think the fluidity comes
yeah,
back. I think
yeah.
that's
And the
a
fun.
constant. And the fun.
Being able to
Yes.
just have fun. And I think that was one of my goals for last year with us is like, I just want to have fun. Like that was my word, is like just more fun, more
Yeah.
fun. And I can tell when I start getting in a little rut and I'm like, I need to go have fun. And I'll be like, tell my husband, I'm like, we need to go do something fun. We need to go somewhere. I just need to go have fun.
Yeah.
And then that kind of gets me back into like where I want to be, like happy,
Right.
pleasure.
And back into, and that's your pleasure practice that
Yeah.
comes for when you're in more of a stuck place. And that's just one of those other things. So much of a pleasure practice is doing daily little things where you're really thoroughly enjoying your cup of tea, or you are caressing your body in a different way. You're dancing, you're smelling the roses, you're doing stuff all throughout the day, and you just start slowly. And that's why I wanted to lead with the fact that this is accessible to anyone and it doesn't have to cost any money. You don't have to go out and buy yourself an $8 chocolate bar. Just enjoy the food from your garden that you're eating, or the food that you bought from takeout last night, or whatever it is. Just start wherever you're at and gradually increase that. Pay attention. I'm thinking of this book. It's about filling your bucket. It's a kid's book. Have you filled a bucket today? And that can be your question at the end of the day. Have I had multiple pleasure experiences today? What were they? And when you wake up in the morning, you can set that intention. What's your intention when you wake up? How much pleasure do you want to have? Create your day. There's obviously life will be life and do different things, but you can respond to things differently and still come back. I love the way Saida says it, actually. She always talks about it being your rudder. You know, a rudder on a boat tells you which direction you're going. And so having whatever your specific desire with how much pleasure you want is on any given day, that's your rudder. So if you're not there yet, which direction do you need to go to make that happen? Is it that you need 10 minutes to give yourself an oil massage? Is it you want 5 minutes to just breathe deeply into your body and feel your breath coming in and out? Whatever it is, start wherever you're comfortable. And I'll try to wrap it up here. But that ties into your physical wellness, your mental wellness, your emotional wellness, and your spiritual wellness. All of those things are better when we have more pleasure, and they're easier. And it all gets easier, and it becomes something where you might start with a small pleasure practice, which could be different every day, and then now that expands. You know, I always have like my morning routine, and then I have these other things. I have continual stuff throughout the day. I can't even count how many times I'm not even trying, but just am having pleasurable moments and breathing into my body and bringing myself in the moment. I can't count that anymore. But with my practices, I can quantify those a little bit more easily, because it's not like my life is set up where I'm in constant practice all day, or that I have hours of it every day. But I've started with X amount of minutes, you know, and on certain days I have bigger practices that get you more into it. And so that's where you can start other things, where, you know, the first video I did for my Pleasure Fairy VIPs was on breast massage this round, because that is an amazing pleasure practice that, you know, I mean, it feels good, but it does so much. In fact, that's going to lead into our next episode about the heart center.
Yeah.
So I'll just kind of leave that be there. The point is you keep building on what you have. So wherever you are today, it's just the invitation to bring more pleasure in and understand the importance of it, because of how it can really impact your life. And so how are you defining it? How do you want to define it? And what are the things you want to do on the daily basis to bring more pleasure into your body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, I'll wrap up completely by just inviting everyone to my free Pleasure Fairy group, and or you can be VIP, where you get weekly live videos from me and monthly Zoom calls with me. And that's Crystal, with a C, the word, my name, crystalpleasurefairy.com. And that can be downloaded to your phone as an app as well. So it's nice and easy to access once you do that and check it all out. And I check it out myself. I'm like, what did I post this week? Oh yeah, let me do that one. And it's just super nice, especially for the people who are VIPs, because you have access to all of those videos right there in the app instead of having to go different places or get on a computer or any of those types of things. And then of course you can find other classes and one-on-ones and things like that on enhanceutv.com, and that's all under the Aliveness Academy, which also my free book is on that page now too. So if you want to snag that up, you can go there to the Aliveness Academy on enhanceutv.com.
And it's really good.
Yeah.
Like, I really had a powerful experience just reading it. Even after all the work I've done, it really kind of unlocked some things for me, and just it's awesome. So everyone just go read it, and then maybe read it again after you've been doing some of these practices a little bit. I always think it's good to come back and reread things, because you're a different person. You'll see it in a different way, and it'll just speak to you in a different way then too. So
yes, and it's an easy read.
It is, yeah.
So
yeah.
Awesome. Well, so much love to all of you. Katie, do you have anything else you want?
No, I think that was all good.
All right. And you can find us too on Instagram at Enlivening Musings as well. We're trying to, build up that following a little bit too.
Yeah.
So, and you can message us there if you have any requests or desires of your own.
Absolutely.
Enjoy.
Bye.